Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you. Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Burke. Commissioner Butler. Commissioner Dunn. Commissioner Gilmetti.
Present.
Commissioner Gardino. Commissioner Kehoe. Commissioner Norton. Commissioner Tavaloni. Commissioner Van Konynenberg.
Here.
Chair Inman.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so we're opening this hearing on the draft 2020 Interregional Transportation Improvement Plan. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to our Executive Director, Branson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners and everyone attending today, thank you for attending the first of two hearings that are required on the draft 2020 Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. Government Code Section 14526 requires the Commission to hold at least two hearings, one in Northern California and one in Southern California, to reconcile any objections by any member of the public or other stakeholder to the draft Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. The Interregional Transportation Improvement Program is a very critical component of the State Transportation Improvement Program. It provides funding for projects to improve state highways, projects to improve the intercity passenger rail program and system, projects to improve interregional movement of people, vehicles, and goods. Members of the public wishing to comment on the draft proposed ITIP, Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, should fill out a speaker's card and can comment following the Caltrans's presentation. Teresa Favila has additional general comments on the State Transportation Improvement Program and the proposed draft Interregional Transportation Improvement Program that we'll be hearing today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, Madam Chair, to Teresa. Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon. The STIP is a 5-year program of capital improvements adopted biannually in even number of years. It is comprised of two broad programs: the Regional Improvement Program that takes 75% of the STIP capacity, and the Interregional Improvement Program that takes 25% of the STIP capacity. The Interregional Program is further subdivided by statute, with 60% going to the outside urbanized areas on the interregional road system, with 15% minimum for intercity rail projects. The other 40% can go anywhere in the state, subject to the 60-40 split. Government code requires that by October 15th of each number of year, and after consulting with the transportation planning agencies, county transportation commissioners, and the transportation authorities, Caltrans shall submit to the commission the draft 5-year ITIP. Statute also requires that by November 15th of each odd year, the commission hold at least two hearings, one in the north and one in the south. The draft ITIP was sent to the commission on October 1st, 2019. It was also posted on the Caltrans website. The southern hearing will be in Irvine, California on October 15th. After the ITIP hearings, Caltrans staff will prepare the final ITIP and shall consider the input received at these hearings. The final ITIP shall include a summary of the major comments received at the hearings and responses to those comments. Final ITIP and RTIPs are due to the Commission by December 15th, 2019. Staff will compile all the proposals into one document that will be presented at the required STIP hearings in January and February. Staff will publish recommendations for the 2020 STIP by February 28th, 2020, and the Commission will adopt the STIP at the March 25th Commission meeting. The fund estimate adopted by the Commission in August, at the August meeting, determined the new funding capacity for the upcoming STIP at $569 million. The formula distribution for the ITIP was $158,832,000. In the 2018 STIP, the ITIP advanced their share balances by $107,418,000. This amount had to be deducted from the formula distribution available to them. This left the net capacity available for the interregional program of $52,414,000. All projects proposed for funding must be consistent with the ITSP, and all projects proposed in the STIP must be fully funded. Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, now we're going to go to item 3, Bruce DeTerra, Caltrans.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Director Branson. Teresa, thank you for that introduction. You took a lot of what I need to put out as the preamble to all this, took care of that for me, so thank you very much. And I didn't intend to get that far in my presentation. Good heavens. I just did that walking up here. Okay, well, starting out, I wanted to point out that the interregional transportation system traverses the entire state and addresses all modes. All 4 of these photos that you see on the cover are actually on the interregional road system, or they are on the Capital Corridor, or one of the intercity passenger rail lines. So these are actual roadways that are subject to the ITIP investments. As Director Branson pointed out, under government code, these are the areas that projects cover under the ITIP, projects to improve the state highways, projects to improve intercity passenger rail, and then projects that improve the interregional movement of goods and people. Within this is additional guidelines. We have government code, and then we have streets and highways code. They both provide guidance on how the ITIP should be directed. And this is the more detailed information that Teresa covered about the 15%, not less than 15% of the amount of funds programmed under the subdivision shall be programmed for intercity passenger rails. And then if I go down to the item B, it further expands at passenger rail, mass transit guideway, or grade separations, as well as highway. So it provides more detail on that. And it's an important point to, a lot of people don't recognize that 15% of the funds, it's 15% of the 25% as a minimum. It does not set a maximum. So also as mentioned, the ITIP has to be consistent with the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan. The currently adopted plan was issued in 2015. It will be going through an update process starting shortly. There will be public workshops and eventually, most likely, presentations to the Commission on the new plan. That new plan will guide the 2022 ITIP project selection on there. So it is that not only a framework for the interregional funding that comes from the STIP, but it's also a guide for all of the interregional system for all sources of funding as to what the state's priorities will be on the interregional system, both freight and passenger. So the current interregional plan has in it these priority corridors that have been identified as being our strategic corridors. They are consistent but less comprehensive than the earlier ITSP that we'd had that was until the 2015 plan. So a lot of people, when we brought forward the 2016 ITIP, were concerned that some of the routes had dropped off at that time. So we are still under that same plan that had those concerns raised in the past. But these are the strategic corridors that were identified. They also overlap with the intercity passenger rail system. And this is the intercity passenger rail system that we're discussing. The primary investments on the intercity passenger rail have been on the 3 corridors that the Surfliner, the San Joaquins, and the Capital Corridor. We've also invested in other routes as well, but these are the primary sources of where we've been investing over the history of the ITIP. So, and I believe you mentioned this, but that the ITIP gets 25% of the STIP, that it splits off for there. And in the 2020 fund estimate, we have the $52.4 million in new capacity. Also, for the projects carrying forward from the 2018 ITIP, we have $52.25 million in cost increases on those projects carrying forward. So those need to be brought up to date. We can't ignore those cost increases and retain the fiscal balance within the program. So we are taking that cost at this time. So essentially, we are left with $164,000 in ITIP capacity going into 2020. This is the history of the ITIP since its inception in 1998, when it started with Senate Bill 45. This also reflects, it mirrors what it is regional agencies have experienced as well, that this dramatic fluctuation in funding. We started off with a lot, and at that time, we began working on the first Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan voluntarily as a department to direct us how we should be investing these ITIP funds in a logical fashion to achieve statewide objectives and goals to improve the system. We knew that we couldn't just sprinkle the money everywhere and expect to get a change in the overall condition of the interregional travel. So we had to focus that. And we actually at the time had things called focus routes that told us we're going to focus our investments on those. So as the funding fluctuated, trying to plan for expenditures and program for these projects that had to be developed. In the beginning, we had a lot of money. As you can see, the second ITIP round, we dropped dramatically. And then we went up dramatically. And then we dropped more dramatically. The seesaw has persisted, with the worst example being the 2016 ITIP, which I had the unfortunate responsibility to come to speak to you about that, with a reduction of between $180 and $192 million from the ITIP. Projects that had been programmed. Some of them were on the verge of going to construction. We simply did not have the funds. The same hit that we took on the ITIP, our regional partners took on their RTIP. So that was a very significant event to have that funding drop. That was resolved. And in 2018, as was pointed out, Teresa pointed out, we overprogrammed what was available in 2018, taking future shares of ITIP that would be coming in this round to accelerate projects both to meet SB1 competitive program projects as companion funding or matching funding to those to be able to move them along and make fully funded projects. And we also had the option with the Advanced Project Development Element, I think I've got that right, APDE funds that were in the guidelines for the STIP that enabled us to bring up to 25% of future ITIP shares from the future cycle into a current cycle, which we did in 2018, and brought that in advanced projects that we otherwise didn't have the funding capacity by borrowing against this funding cycles or advancing this funding cycle's shares. And we did this knowing that there was a risk that the next fund estimate hadn't been produced. We didn't know exactly where the revenue would go, but we were optimistic. It wouldn't be as high as what we had for 2018, but we thought we'd be more in the 2012, 2014 range, that we began to experience a steady state on that. That was a miscalculation that we overreached, but we did get to advances. What we pointed out through this, we are keeping that vast majority of the $107 million of projects that we advanced. So we also very recently, just within the past couple of weeks, had the executive order issue, Executive Order 1919, that directs the California Transportation Agency and Caltrans to focus our investments where we have that latitude to make such investments on achieving various goals the state has set that are set in legislation and also that are set through the governor's executive orders. So when we were starting on our efforts to develop the ITIP, this had not yet come to pass. And we were already looking at, with the $164,000, what we were going to do to address this, what we viewed as a dire funding situation, given all the charges we have to do. So for the 2020 ITIP, we've been working on this for a while. We began consulting with the districts and some partner agencies back in February and March of this year to start developing the ITIP, to get updates on all the projects that would be continuing forward, to identify whether they would need time extensions or any kind of amendment to go before the commission during the ITIP process that would come to the commission in March. So there was a long process, and I know we had conference calls, and many of the districts also had their partner agencies in on those conference calls. And then we met separately with some agencies who came up to meet with us, or we had phone conversations. We were also invited to some of the meetings where they had with commission staff to discuss their projects and needs in a whole region basis. So we were taking this input, and at this point, we did not know what the fund estimate was going to be. We were still optimistic, and we were encouraging because we also know that there are going to be the competitive rounds coming up under SB1, and that the ITSP that this ITIP program links back to, the ITSP would be guiding those choices on behalf of the state as well, to be competing for those projects, that it should, for the interregional system, we're looking for some consistency so that we wind up using the ITSP for a guide to apply for some of those projects as well. So we wanted to understand the full need that exceeds what's available in the ITIP. So for what we're proposing to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to take care of the cost increases on existing projects. And that is represented in the spreadsheets that you have attached to the presentation and also in the draft document that I believe you received. We are deleting one, we are recommending, so we are not doing anything, I need to reflect that, at this meeting or at this time, and we have no...
Already exposed.
Yeah, I know. Unilateral authority to do that. We are proposing to transfer, to reprogram one rail project, move from one project to another at an equal value within the same general jurisdiction. And that is in concurrence with the regional agency on that. So there's a net zero to the project change. Now comes the difficult part and why many of us are here today to discuss this. So we've been working to try to create some capacity because it wasn't anticipated when we started this that we would be able to add no new projects on either the highway or the rail. And we knew that we have the need, and we've been working towards this as a department. The commission's been holding a lot of workshops to work towards addressing climate change and the need for mode shift and VMT reduction. So we were looking for opportunities to do that. And with this ITIP, we didn't have that opportunity coming forward on its, just based on 164,000. So we started to look at, well, how can we generate, where can we go to create capacity? So we looked, and this is within Caltrans, within the programming division. We looked at what we have coming forward in the ITIP and that would carry forward to 2018. And we looked for phases of projects that didn't have any other funding besides ITIP so that we wouldn't jeopardize anyone else's funding. We also looked for projects that we had advanced, where we'd borrowed money against the future, the APDE phases, where had we known we were going to have this very low availability, we would not have programmed those APDE funds. There was also guidance from the commission that went out to agencies that included Caltrans that we were welcome to remove APDE projects if so desired, that was one of the options under the 2020 ITIP. So that looked like a relatively straightforward option in order to create capacity. We also looked at projects that were not on the verge of construction. We did not want to jeopardize any projects that were going into construction. And we also did not want to actually delete any projects. We just wanted to take capacity out of this round and leave the project in there so it could come back in, presuming that 2022 or the competitive programs would be opportunities to come back in and fund the projects. So we identified $32,494,000 in that. Since we did that initial one, and that's what went public, we further examined our opportunities on this and then realized, even though we had two APDE projects on one corridor on Highway 99 Tulare City, one of the phases had started work, and we weren't aware of that at the time we were putting this together, and that we had two phases, environmental, PA&ED, and design. So with environmental starting, we are retracting that as a deletion to keep that project moving forward. That project is open and active. It is not using ITIP yet because that money is not yet available. They have to wait until the year of the programming. But the design phase would still be removed from that project. The environmental has not yet been completed, and so the design can wait until the next round when the environmental process is complete. We also had savings from the Tegas 99 project of $8,673,000. So that was another place that we looked, and we actually looked at savings first. I just put these in order to go ahead and address this, the biggest issue right off the bat up there. But the savings we looked as an opportunity in the ITIP to create capacity. And then we also looked at opportunities to exchange ITIP funding for other funding that was flexible and able to do that. We've done that in the past. We did that in the 2018 cycle when we were able to secure the SB1 TCEP, the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program funds on one of the Highway 99 projects and freed up ITIP projects that we then applied to another Highway 99 project. So we were doing that on this to also then use the Highway 99 bond program to free up now the ITIP. It kind of flipped in a sense. So the proposal that initially was posted and put out showed a 61 million ITIP remaining capacity. And with the reduction of the 2 million, it drops down to a $59 million capacity. So now I neglected to talk about a very important project on here. And that is the project on Highway 46 that we had for design. That was one of the 3 projects to remove, and that will come up later when I show the actual project slides. But that was another project in that quarter that I'm going to talk about and why we have that Highway 46 map first to talk about that, its context. Am I going the wrong way? Yep. Okay, so this is the Highway 46 corridor, and what we're seeing on here is between Highway 101 and the Paso Robles area to Interstate 5 in the Kern County area. And so what you're seeing here with these color-coded markings for where Highway 46 is located, the bright green on there are project components that have already been completed in coordination with the regional agencies through which the highway passes, and primarily through ITIP funding over the years that we've done this, and then some regional funding as well. But we've had a concerted effort for many years to complete this corridor. The blue markings in San Luis Obispo County, the 2 bright blue with no other coloration on it, those are projects that are active. Those 2 are going to be going to construction within the time period of the 2020 ITIP. And so we are leaving those alone completely. The next phase, Antelope, that has had environmental completed. And so we were looking at starting to work on design, but with the other activity on there, we elected to postpone it to the 2022 cycle when we'd have more capacity to get working on the design on that. We, importantly, on the project where the Y is, and there's a little fork where Highway 41 and 46 split off, that project, which is quite infamous in the region, that project is staying on schedule and is going to construction. For Antelope, it's important to also recognize that does not yet have its construction funding secured. Had all of that set up, it might have been a different consideration. And we did consult with the district, and they're of course not happy about that, and the regional agency by extension as well. And then you can see on the Kern segment, we've also accomplished quite a lot on that, and we have the last 2 segments. The one on the far end, intersecting with Interstate 5, is actually actively under construction and has ITIP funding on it. And the other segment, segment B, that shows a blue and a red stripe, it has partial funding on it and is not fully funded. On Highway 99, I'm using these maps. The department, the regional agencies, the state as a whole through the Proposition 1B Highway 99 bond account, we collectively have been investing, and the commission has been heavily focused and working on this corridor for many years. With the ITIP prior to Prop 1 being passed, and then of course with the 99 bond program, bringing in approximately $800 million to this portion of the corridor in the San Joaquin Valley, very much focused on that. And we've collectively accomplished a lot thus far. We still have a lot more to go, and we are not abandoning this. We have quite a few active projects, which you can see on the project sheet. What we're proposing to do is to delay a couple of phases on a couple of projects until we have greater fiscal capacity and bring those back at a future cycle. We're not proposing. They remain eligible. We think that there are projects on there that will be highly competitive for the Prop 1B, or rather SB1 trade corridors funds. For the valley as a whole, we recognize that the congested corridors would be difficult to come up with projects that would meet some of the needs of the valley, but there may be some possibilities as long as they're not adding new highway lane capacity. And then the same is true on the southern portion of the corridor. We've made tremendous progress there as well, and we have a lot of progress still to go. We recognize that as a whole. And when talking about the corridor, one of the mistakes that I know we often make within Caltrans, and I'm sure some of our partners too, is the idea of the corridor as the highway. The highway is one component of the corridor. There's a freight railroad there, there's passenger rail there, high-speed rail is under development. There are also lots of connectors between cities. And so we recognize that there needs to be investment across modes, and the San Joaquin corridor, out of the 3 state-supported intercity passenger rail lines, has the least amount of service on it, and we are working towards trying to increase the number of trains. Plans that are underway have us going from 6 trips per day to 8 trips per day in the future, but we need to make various improvements. And as all of you know, working on these kinds of projects with the Class 1 railroads takes time and is challenging to do that, but we are persisting and we will continue to invest in that corridor in there. So this map is showing where the locations of the highway projects in this current round of the proposed ITIP are located. The black font with the arrows connecting to the locations on the highways, those are projects that we're proposing to continue on through. And some of them, a couple of them have the cost increase on those, on the highway projects. There were no cost increases on the rail projects. And the 3 in the kind of an orange font, those are the ones that we're recommending to postpone or deprogram, rather, from this funding cycle. So that's 3 separate projects, 1 on 46 and 2 on Highway 99. Funding table. So you have that table, and the full table is within the document that is posted, and it shows where they are. But overall, you see that there is a tremendous number of interregional projects that are retained, that are moving forward. The vast majority of the projects are still moving forward for in excess of $600 million worth of projects. So we're doing that, and they are primarily concentrated along a few very key routes: Highway 99, some on Highway 70 up in the North State, Highway 46, Highway 101 up on the North Coast, and intercity. Well, the intercity passenger rails are coming up here. You've had presentations, or I've had the pleasure of giving you a presentation and I believe it was at the 2018 meeting when we funded the last segment of the Highway 58 corridor. Not Kramer Junction. Yeah, Kramer Junction. I was going to get that with Colton Crossing. That was a different success that I love talking about. But Kramer Junction, that was an ITIP funded project. And that again, there's a tremendous focus of this program on the San Joaquin Valley, providing connectivity for it to the coast, to points to the north and south, and then to also the east. So highway projects with changes, the very small number, and then the projects recommended for deletion. On the project recommended for deletion, I was not able to modify this, or maybe we did modify that table. Oh, nope, it's on there, the $2 million for the Tulare City. That one we would propose to withdraw from the proposal on there. These are the locations for the intercity passenger rail projects. The new, or the replacement project we're proposing at Union Station in Los Angeles at the same amount that was in roughly the Northridge area, the San Fernando Valley. They are on the same system on the Surfliner, and it's an even swap, as I mentioned, and that is in cooperation with Metro. And these are the rail projects that are carrying forward with no new rail project funding. So, that's okay. So, as was mentioned earlier, comments are due to the department by November 15th. We will be having another hearing in Southern California in Orange County on October 15th. And we will also be conducting quite a few direct individual meetings with the regional agencies that are affected by this. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, or if you'd like to wait until others provide comments, I'm fine
I
either
think we
way.
may have some questions. I know I do, and I know the other commissioners. So let's have you stay at the podium, Bruce,
Okay.
and questions, and then we'll hear from our public. So clarification, yes, Commissioner Gomati?
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Bruce. Most all the interstates are covered on this, this map here?
Yes,
Except for Interstate 8?
yes.
Why is that?
Interstate 8 along the border with Mexico. That had not been part of the original ITSP, and I don't know why. The interstate system as a whole is eligible. It is on the interregional road system, but it wasn't identified as a priority corridor for investment. It may be that it is already operating as an interstate capacity and wasn't being viewed as a facility for expansion. It is eligible for SHOP funding, but in terms of the ITIP expanding capacity and making improvements, there wasn't an assumption at the time that Interstate 8 was in need of that.
Well, I'm not sure there's need for improvements right now, but it certainly seems to me that it is a trade corridor.
It definitely is a trade corridor. And I believe in the freight plan, it showed the currently adopted freight plan, it shows up as a trade corridor.
Thank you.
And
We have other questions, Commissioner Van Kleinenberg?
So walk me through, you mentioned that some Prop 1B money was used in in the Madera section to get that project going after it was originally in the draft of the 2018 ITIP and then dropped from the draft of the ITIP. Is that what you're referring to in terms of how this, as setting precedents for how you're going forward on this?
not necessarily setting precedents, it was just a recent example of what we've
That's not
tried.
really, we never programmed that in the ITIP. It was never formally programmed, it was dropped out of the ITIP. It was in the original draft and then dropped out of the final draft, correct?
Because, yes.
Okay,
It
and
was
then
propo-
to scramble to save the project, we had to use some Prop 1B savings.
I'd have to look into the details on that,
Okay.
I'm not,
So I guess I'm challenged to, were you in the headquarters office when Prop 1B was passed?
no.
Okay. I guess, explain to me your understanding of why money that's in Prop 1B, because I printed out what was passed by the voters.
Yes.
Explain to me how, based upon this, why we can deprogram something and then reprogram using Prop 1B funds and then take those funds and move them outside of the corridor in violation of how the deal we made with the voters.
Okay, so this is referencing the 20 million.
Yes.
So the way we're viewing that is that 20 million in the bond funding can be only used on the Highway 99 corridor.
Right.
And so your point is well taken. So to bring in ITIP, to
So
free
you have
up
to
ITIP.
deprogram
Right,
20
to-
million of ITIP on the corridor.
So we would
and then
to-
swap it.
Yeah, to put that, so it would essentially stay in the corridor, the bond money, but the ITIP would leave the corridor.
So I guess I'll reserve
so I-
comment
I-
on it
yeah,
for
I
later,
understand
toward
your-
the end.
understand the point you're making.
So then the next question is, explain to me the process of how you came to this, the writing of this ITIP, in terms of at what point, who was the lead, were you the lead person for drafting it?
Yes,
Or was it?
it is me.
Okay, and explain to me your rationale of how, other than, were these the only ways that you were directed by somebody to come up with $60 million, or?
No, I was asked to find capacity when it became apparent that there was no capacity to do anything new.
You were directed by whom?
I was directed by Transportation Agency to find capacity.
Okay, and what
within the
what
ITIP.
were you specifically, how much were you?
I was
were
not
told
asked
to
any
find?
particular dollar amount.
Okay, and were you told to find it how?
No methodology.
So no boundaries, you were just told to find as much money as you can?
No, just find some capacity so we have the ability to do some additional work
Okay.
that's in line with where the state's goals are.
Okay.
So part of the issue with this is that this 2020 ITIP is going to be programming funds through this 5-year cycle.
Yeah.
So the next opportunity is 2022, and the new funds will come out in the outer 2 years of the next cycle. So essentially, we're skipping an enormous amount of time to make any investments in the system to create capacity that lets us do something other than drive automobiles. The rail, the ITIP is not having any new near-term investments in the
How much are
interregional.
we spending per year in the TSIP for rail?
I don't know that offhand.
So it's not
On-
like we're
on-
not
on
making
past-
rail investments?
On the TCEP, they probably wouldn't be investing.
I'm sorry.
TIRCP, I'm sorry, yes.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
unfortunately, my office doesn't have any oversight or.
That is
reporting on it, so I don't
approximately
have that.
500 million
So
ballpark per
500
year.
million a year we're spending on rail, right?
Approximately, yes.
We're programming and allocating approximately,
Well,
right?
yes, the
So it's not
agency
like we're not
programs.
spending on rail. So,
I believe that's also transit funding as well, so I don't know how
Intercity rail,
that's,
yes.
Okay.
how that's all
Okay.
split out.
All right.
And it's not just on the interregional rail system either.
okay. So, all right, I'll save the rest of what I have for the end.
Okay. Oh,
Commissioner Alvarado, you're okay. Bruce, I have a question for
Yes.
you. So going back to the 52 million, I think in round numbers, or maybe it's 53
yes,
in
50,
round numbers,
52.
of cost increases
Mm-hmm.
for projects, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because was that really 60 million? We had 8.6 million savings on another project, so we're really overruns by 60 million?
No, I don't think so, if I'm understanding you correctly. One of the projects that has the increase, which is the North Coast 101 project, that one has a funding cost increase, but we worked with them to drive that down from what it started out as, and it would have actually put us in the negative on the ITIP. had
Okay,
that
so
gone forward.
I guess my process on that is when we have overruns or increases that eat up the whole capacity, basically, what kind of oversight or, I mean, if we're that far off, I mean, first of all, this bipolar kind of estimate is difficult for any of us, for our partners, or for any of us to really kind of manage our budgets when we're rich one day and not so rich at all.
We expect that to flatten out now with SB1.
Okay. So I think a little bit of sharing about what are we doing on those overruns? I mean, would we have picked those if we knew? I mean, if we don't have good information to make good decisions, we might not make a decision exactly. I mean, if I think something's going to cost me $10, but in reality it's 100, then maybe I don't pick it at 100.
I think for that corridor, in terms of having balance within the state and the importance of that corridor to that region and the necessity of that project, had we known what this current cost is going to be, we probably would have picked that project anyway. It's a vital project that has to be done up on the North Coast. And there are representatives here from that region who can speak to the project specifically and have much more detailed knowledge. But we probably would have still done that because they have a significant need there. And that's
Okay.
one of the things with the ITIP that's really important. Some of the Highway 99 projects, when you look at the map and you can see it in more detail, I don't know what size map you got in your packet if you got an individual page, but you can see many of the gaps that have not yet been filled are in the dense urban areas of the San Joaquin Valley. That there are several of those, and those are extremely difficult or inexpensive when we're going to go into some of those. Because they're developed, some of them have elevated structure above the community, so it's really a challenge to do that. But we're still going to be pursuing that, and we have pursued it in a lot of others, just like we pursued the very expensive and difficult Kramer Junction project. I think the state would probably come to the same conclusion that Kramer needed doing, even though the cost turned out to be higher than what we originally expected.
Okay. And so I don't know if, I'm going to ask you a quick question, then we'll hear from all our partners. But a lot of this area is the nation's breadbasket. We've got heavy ag industry here. Freight is very, very important. We've done a number of freight studies in this region. And where we have inefficiencies, I'll call them, which some of our gaps would be, they're particularly hard if you're in an 18-wheeler. So they kind of magnify the issues, I think, of how do we move things effectively. And, my concern is that freight's going to find a way because we have to. We have expiration dates on many of our products. So how do we make sure that in all of our modeling and looking at trying to achieve emission reduction goals, because I'm very sensitive to the fact that this is a non-attainment air district in the San Joaquin Valley. How do we make sure that we're not, by diverting, and it's not so easy. We want to have mode shift to the rail, but I'd be very interested to know if we looked at the rail moves to see how much of that is multimodal move and is going to go onto the rail here and then go out, or are those freight moves really part of a long haul? So I think we have to just make sure that we're really peeling that onion to make sure that we've analyzed all of those. So.
And the 99 corridor has some of all of it, and a lot of all of it, actually. The long haul, a lot of short haul, a lot of seasonal, from harvest to processing facilities to then take them to the ports for export, and then also to the intercity, the Class 1 railroads out of the state to the East Coast and points in between. And by and large, when they're going overseas, they're not putting that on railroad to go to the Port of Oakland, they're trucking that.
Okay, so is this integrated with our freight plan work then too?
The 99 corridor certainly is when looking at that. The new freight plan, I'm not in charge of it this time, but
I don't think it's ready yet.
When I was,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
You'll be hearing about its status tomorrow.
Okay, with that, I think we've got a lot of public to hear
Yes.
from, and that's why we're here today, is really hear from the public. So
And
with that,
shall I
don't leave, Bruce. We're going to have some more questions for you, I'm sure.
I anticipate.
So,
Gino, should I leave this up here for anybody else?
with that, because we do have a whole bunch of folks, and I want to tell you, we really appreciate you making the effort and coming. So I am going to ask Assemblyman Devin Mathis to come first, followed by Rob, and I'm going to mess up Poitras. Yes. Okay, if you'll queue up in the queue line, followed by Nick Merman. Okay, thank you, Assemblyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I come here today, not just for myself, but the other members in the San Joaquin Valley, to request that we fully fund the SR 99 project components recommended for deletion. Caltrans released the draft recommendations on October 1st, which this isn't new information to you all, but without consulting the San Joaquin Valley, that there would be recommendations to delete the SR 99 project components. The recommendations did not include any explanation, and I didn't really hear a very good one from the testimony just heard on how the funding would be replaced. As all of you know, SR 99 is vital to the state of California and for the nation for freight goods movement. It is unacceptable to delay improvement to SR 99 and to this corridor, which, quite frankly, hauls more freight than the entire state of Texas. Also, Caltrans District 6, in my neck of the woods, worked to develop cost savings on another ITIP project in Tulare County. The reward for local Caltrans districts developing cost savings recommendations by Caltrans headquarters seems to be deleting the future projects. All of the proposed deletions have district impacts in the San Joaquin Valley. Again, I request the funding for SR 99 recommendations for deletion is fully restored within the final ITIP adoption. In addition, I request the CTC and Caltrans develop a plan to fully fund SR 99 corridor freight's good movements safely, and that these projects happen within the next 10 years. You know, commissioners, we hear the governor talk about his initiative for Regions Rise Together. And in the San Joaquin Valley, our region, Madam Chair, as you stated, is a highly agricultural region. We're seasonal. We have many things that have to move in timely manners, and we need these expansions. The Valley has been pushing for these expansions for decades, and we need to see this happen. We need to see the intent of our regions here in the Valley rising, and that these things happen. And with all due respect, commissioners, I ask that you do the right thing and secure this funding for these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rob?
Madam Chair and honorable commissioners, first of all, I'd just like to mention that I appreciate the opportunity that you've given us all today to comment on the 2020 ITIP. I'd like to let you know that, as you could guess, we are deeply disappointed with the recommendations that the SR 99 projects from the San Joaquin Valley are deleted from the ITIP plan. The recommendations, as was mentioned by the Assemblyman, were made without consultation with any local MPO or any other jurisdiction. They were a complete surprise when the report came out on October 1st. In fact, the three projects that are recommended for defunding are in rural areas of the state, and two of the three are disadvantaged regions of the state. One of the recommended project recommendations is in my county, which is the 99 Safety Widening Project from Avenue 12 to Avenue 7. During the day, from my office, I can see it, the traffic is bumper to bumper as 6 lanes try to squeeze into 4 lanes. This results actually in 3 major problems. First of all, the loss of safety. We all know as traffic tries to slow down and those pinch points, you see those brake lights and things of that sort, and that can result in serious accidents. I mean, it has happened. Also, it results in increased air pollution. We're very concerned about climate change. Well, traffic and trucks and so forth idling at a very slow speed in a pinch point is only going to add to our air pollution. And number 3, as was mentioned, it's the major Central California artery for the movement of goods, whether they're agricultural goods, whether they're for building, whether for construction, whatever it is, it's the major artery. There's only 3 in the state. We've got 101, 5, and 99. And 99 is the one that runs to all those cities. It carries all the produce, and that really needs to be considered. And then finally, that section of road is the northern gateway to the largest population point in Central California, which is a greater Fresno-Clovis area. It's the northern portal. 700,000 people live there. So it's just not, if people were looking at, well, it's Madera, that'll be okay. Well, you need to think about the 700,000 people that live in Fresno that are going to be experiencing even a more severe pinch point. I'd also like to recommend that I understand the corridor considers things like transit and rail in addition to the highways. Well, I'm not sure if Bruce realizes this, but 2 years ago, we started an extra rail line or an extra train from Fresno to Sacramento, Well, it was canceled after a year because of lack of ridership. So in our region, it's still extremely important to have highway widening to relieve congestion. That's just the way it is in the valley. And adding more trains is not going to add to ridership at this particular time. I especially resent the statement that Caltrans made in response to concerns that came out early last week after October 1st. Their response was, people need to change their thinking and not be obstructionists. What kind of a response is that? I mean, it's kind of like, do we all need to go to re-education camps or something? I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's the essence of arrogance and is not representative of a good, open, and working relationship. I mean, it's unbelievable. Also, last Thursday, many of us attended in Merced, at UC Merced, a session on California Forward. And we talked about this grassroots effort about all regions rise together. And it all starts from the bottom. Well, this is not starting from the bottom. This is called swallow this whether you like it or not. There's no conversation, there's nothing going on. It's just saying this is the way it is, enjoy it. And this is not a good thing considering that Fresno is hosting California Forward next month. It's very bad timing. And I can let you know how the state can help the Valley move forward. And I know a good place to start. I'd just like to conclude that more and more Central Californians are becoming aware of this news. They're disgusted and outraged. My colleagues on the Madera Board of Supervisors also wish to voice their deep disappointment. If you sense I'm fired up, then I've communicated correctly and accurately and effectively. We will continue to press for reinstatement of the funding for the safety widening project on SR 99, and we're not going away. Again, I'd like to thank the CTC for their willingness to hear our concerns and urge you to join us in our effort to reinstate the Madera SR ITIP widening project. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Nick Merman?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Nick Merman. I'm here representing Assemblyman Jordan Cunningham, who represents the 35th Assembly District, which encompasses all of San Luis Obispo County and northern Santa Barbara County. The Assemblyman sent in a letter to the Commission early this morning. He has asked me to appear here and read it into the record for you. Chair Inman, as the State Assembly's lone representative of San Luis Obispo County, I write to you today in opposition to the staff proposal to renege on the state's commitment to fully funding the Highway 4146 corridor project, specifically the Antelope grade widening on Highway 46. While I understand that the governor's recent executive order has forced the commission to look at projects funded by the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, otherwise known as ITIP, I implore the commission to maintain its commitment to our region through any and all funding mechanisms. In a 2017 San Luis Obispo Tribune article, 2 Caltrans officials were quoted about the widening of Highway 46 through the dangerous corridor. One called the work, quote, a high priority project for Caltrans and the state of California. Another said that the widening, quote, is improving the safety of the traveling public. Highway 46 supports the annual movement of $7 billion worth of goods shipments between the coastal and Central Valley regions. The highway is also critical to the $5 billion Central Coast tourism economy and the thousands of jobs that rely upon it. The corridor is one of the most critical east-west links in the state's transportation network for moving people, goods, and services. The route connects US 101 to Interstate 5 and provides our region with a lifeline when natural disasters close coastal highways. The widening of Highway 46 not only carries an economic benefit, but a safety one as well. The Highway 4146 corridor in San Luis Obispo County, otherwise known as Blood Alley, has seen a fatality rate 3 times higher than the state average. By widening the highway and placing a center median on the length of the highway, the state has the opportunity to save real lives. Over the past 20 plus years, the state has invested north of $400 million to upgrade and make this crucial state priority highway safer and more reliable. The Antelope Grade project is the golden spike in this process, the final segment of 7 to be widened. I see no reason for the state to cut itself short. We must finish strong. Our region and the state at large deserves assurances from this commission that this priority project will be funded and that the Highway 4146 corridor, will be modernized and finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I'm going to have Sam Chung, and then I'm going to ask Bill Thomas to queue up, and Yvonne Garcia. So if you two gentlemen can follow.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. My name is Sam Chung. I'm here on behalf of Assemblyman Vince Fong, who's a representative of Kern County within the 34th Assembly District. I'm here today to urge the Commission to reconsider the draft proposal deleting funding for Highway 46. For Kern County residents, this project is first and foremost a public safety issue. This is why we request this project continue to be fully funded so that we can widen Highway 46 and place a center median on the length of the highway. For the last 50 years, this route has posed a significant risk to many Kern County residents that travel on Highway 46 every day for business, for pleasure. It's one of the few east-west routes connecting Kern County to the Central Coast. As the prior speaker commenter mentioned, this corridor is known as Blood Alley. It's 3 times higher rates than the state average for fatalities. This is why we believe this project must continue forward because it has the opportunity to save lives. I want to also state the Assemblyman's opposition to the deletion of funding for the State Safety and Congestion Relief Project on State Route 99 in Madera and Tulare. This is another vital transportation corridor for the Central Valley and the residents of Kern County. We hope to see the Commission reject the removal of these funds that significantly harm drivers, residents, and workers of the Central Valley. We believe we can work together to find a better approach that won't jeopardize the safety and lives of those who travel daily to and from and within the San Joaquin Valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Thomas. Congressman to me.
Thank you. This will help a little bit. As you heard from the previous 2 speakers, I also represented for 32 years in east-west county in a north-south state. For 50 years. I came to Kern County in 1965. Ironically, in 1965, Highway 99 freeway bypassed Bakersfield. And what had been 466 over the Tehachapis became a 4-lane road into Bakersfield, dead ending at 99. After 30 years in Congress trying to make changes, I realized that I had one last opportunity. In the 0506 highway bill, I was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, and I had to find the funds. For those of you who are interested in light rail and rails to trails, I found $18 billion so Congressman Oberstar could assist a number of his Democratic colleagues in metropolitan areas. What I also asked for was if I could create a local consortium, city, county, KernCog, and Caltrans, could I please have the money sent to us? $750 million came to us. And over all those years, I think we've lived up to our commitment. I want to thank you. I was grilled the last time I was in front of you. Oh no, the second to last time, about SB1. I said I was a strong supporter of SB1. And lo and behold, out of the SB1 monies, you gave us $25 million to assist in the freight corridor. Ironically also, the federal government was focusing on freight corridors, and California received 2 grants, the only state to do so, and the largest grant of $50 million came to us. I'm pleased to say all I have to do is live until late summer, early fall of 2022. They were kind enough to call that coordinated structure the Thomas Road Improvement Program. We're going to cut a ribbon. And thank goodness for Kramer Junction, because there's 7 miles of two-lane road, and believe me, the East-West County is familiar with two-lane roads. I don't draw a distinction between District 5 and District 6. I represented both of them over a portion of time. They all have had the same problem, and they've had the same problem for more than 50 years. So I focused, as others have focused, on trying to solve the problem. Drive with me from the Arizona state line, and we'll focus on 15 and 40. 10 is clearly the southern way up into Southern California. About 15,000 trucks a day come into California on 15 and 40, and they kind of come together at Barstow. And do you know that out of those 15,000 trucks a day, about 7,500 of them head north before they go west on Highway 58? And that's where the 7 miles of two-lane road leads toward Kramer Junction. Grade separation has taken care of us in that area. We now come to 58 down into the valley. Our goal, and we are going to achieve it, is to get that freight on 4 lanes through the 9th largest city in California, Bakersfield, and over to 5. And the goal was, of course, going north to 5 to pick up 46. Our commitment was to make 46 4 lanes. And we have done that almost in its entirety. James Dean lost his life in 1955 at the 41-46 junction. In the 50 years since then, all that has been done is put up a traffic signal, which is absolutely worthless when fog comes in the Thule fogs, as it always does. Why, in this improvement program, do you deny the ability to create 4 lanes from I-5 over to 101? Going west, you're going to create, with that 5-mile drop, 5 miles after they get on 4, a 4-lane road into a 2-lane road. Rob, I appreciate the concern you have with 6 lanes going into 4. We're talking about 2 lanes going into 1, i.e. leaving it the way it was. Now, let's go over quickly, and I apologize, to the West Coast heading east. We're off of 101, and do you know, as people were talking, an enormous amount of produce freight comes from the Salinas Valley and gets on 46 to go east. And as you come out after 41-46, the so-called antelope grade is a 6% grade. And a portion of the money that you're going to be spending to clear up that with that grade separation gives us about a mile of 4-lane road up a 6% slope. It eventually goes to a 1%. Well, you can imagine how trucks can accelerate from a 6% to a 1%, and cars are backing up behind them. And you get 2 trucks together, you have this enormous line of cars who want to get around. And when you go back to 2 lanes, after that 1 mile of 4 lanes, you're going to have an enormous pressure point. And the passing lanes that occur later on 46 are totally inadequate. You can't even get 1 car around 2 trucks. You can sometimes get 1 car around 1 truck in those short lanes. If we're going to look for compromise, give us some kind of an honest proposal. If you're going to deny the antelope grade, which you shouldn't, then give us some long areas to be able to reshuffle the car-automobile mix after that grade. Now, Kern County in 2018 was the largest agricultural county in the United States. This year, sad to say, Tulare County is the largest, and we're the 2nd largest. We have an enormous amount of freight coming to Delano, which is then transferred by rail and goes all the way to the East Coast. That intermodal from Shafter and Delano is an enormous amount of freight. The freight that goes east on 58 goes over the Tehachapi Summit. More cars go over that more trucks go over that every day than over 80. 10 is the southern route, 80 is the northern route. We don't have an interregional connection in the center of a north-south state. I think we've done our part with you folks really recognizing shovel-ready and providing an enormous amount of money to get us to $1,400,000,000 to get across the 9th largest city with the emissions reduced and the traffic flowing, to go up 5 and hit a 2-lane road 5 miles west of 5, and then go to an area that is in its essence, after 60 years, 2 lanes. That is not acceptable. These other people coming up have to be sensitive in the way in which they phrase things because they have a future. I don't. And it is absolutely asinine to me to say they're going to wind up with a $60 million unassigned pool of money and they take $10 million out of an ability to create a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road. And I just don't understand it. We're talking the second largest freight route in and out of the state. And we've been coping with 2 lanes for 50 years. And somehow they disappear after $1,400,000,000 has been spent by all of us to get it past what we thought were the most difficult areas to move that freight and people and save lives. And you somehow believe that you can just draw a line through 2 projects that sink us back to 2 lanes and have a $60 million reserve that isn't assigned anywhere? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yvonne? After Yvonne, Rosa, can I get you prepared to queue up, and Dave? And then Bill Zalowski. Oh, there's something on the back of this. No? Okay, Yvonne.
Thank you. Yvonne Garcia with the Butte County Association of Governments. A map is, a picture's worth 1,000 words right here. I'm here to advocate for the completion and the programming of the Highway 70 corridor. In this particular case, it's not even in our county. This is in Yuba County. This is a 30-year effort since the 1988 CTC blueprint of how to connect California's last largest urbanized area of Chico to the state's four-lane highway system from Chico to Sacramento. 2 years ago, I was here with Mayor Jones from the town of Paradise advocating for the programming of Highway 70 in Butte County. At that time, and it's the same case here, we advocated, Caltrans was on the hook to do shop safety projects on Highway 70 for 3 lanes, a center turn lane and 8-foot shoulders. And we said that the shop safety funds would cover 70%. How can we not work together and come up with the 30%? And we worked with Caltrans. We were able to do that to leverage our regional improvement program shares with the ITIP, and we got segments 1, 2, and 3 programmed. And we're actually going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony on segment 1, I believe in a month or so. Kudos to District 3. So I'm here to advocate for the programming of $32 million in Yuba County. 2 weeks ago, the Yuba County Board of Supervisors passed by resolution to support the programming of $4 million in regional funds. That recommendation is going to SACOG. Our board, the Butte County Association of Governments, is still committed, Even after the Oroville Dam crisis, after the Camp Fire, we're still committed to seeing this through, but we need help. And it makes sense to fix it once and fix it right. We have an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to capitalize on those shop safety funds. Doesn't make sense to come back later. Right now, we're able to leverage those funds and get it done. If this becomes separate projects in the future, there's no way we can be funding partners. We have way too many needs up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Rosa and Dave? I got a twofer on this request.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners and Director Branson. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the draft 2020 Interregional Transportation Improvement Program. I would like to go back to reference your 2008 Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, where the Stanislaus region had ITIP funds program for an originally named project called the Oakdale Bypass. In 2008, the project was renamed to the North County Corridor Project. The project was removed from the ITIP in 2008, and concurrently in 2008, the CTC by resolution committed up to $91 million for future ITIP funds for the North County Corridor Project. Since that time, the Stanislaus region became a self-help county in 2016. In 2018, the county was awarded a billed federal grant for $20 million, further leveraging our measure dollars. The Stanislaus Council of Governments and the county are respectfully requesting that the North County Corridor project is included for reprogramming of $30 million of ITIP funds for fiscal year of 2022 and 2023. We have been having discussions with Caltrans, CTC staff in the past. They're great partners, but at this time, as you may understand, we became a self-help county. We're getting our projects ready, and we are requesting that the promise made back in 2008 that we consider it. And we're not asking for 91, we're asking for 30 million. So at this time, I would like to introduce Dave Lehman, who is the Public Works Director for the county, who will give you more information on the project.
Dave Lehman, Stanislaus County Public Works Director. We have about $114 million need. We have $13 million of our own local development money. We're going to start design at risk here in a couple months. We won't have our NEPA CEQA document until March, but it works with our build grant deadlines. The build grant deadline is where we've got a draft agreement approved with DOT, and it's going back to Washington, D.C. here shortly. The right-of-way phase will begin in summer of 2020. We should be, we have to be ready to list in fall of 2022, and we're going to be under construction in 2023. And there is a $30 million need in the region for state help. I mean, this is a state facility. I have printed out in my office of the state highway map from 1969, the year I was born, and this route has been there, along with 132, since the dawn of time. It's time for the state to come help the region build this critical facility that is an east-west route, as earlier mentioned, in a north-south state.
Welcome to the club.
Exactly. So we are, as mentioned, one of two build grants in the state. The federal government recognizes the priority and need of this. This is a 2-mile segment, as you can see on there. It grade separates a dangerous intersection. 5-person fatality wiped out an entire family there about 10 years ago. This is the most expensive portion of the North County Corridor, Oakdale Bypass, because there are so many structures in it. And so this does build on the previous 7 miles of highway from 99 and 219, continuing out to Oakdale Road. And so this is a critical priority project for Stanislaus County and our region. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to have Bill, and then we'll have Patricia Taylor, followed by Robert Ball. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair. Bill Zalaki, Modesto City Council, continuing on the North County corridor. Just a couple of quick comments. One, we are a self-help county now. That changed how things operate in Stanislaus County, where we're never able to complete our projects because we didn't have the competing money to put it together. Now we have, and the same thing with the North County corridor. I can point back to 2017, the Caltrans, well, your board approved $21 million for our 132. And by the way, next week is the groundbreaking of that project. I hope all of you can make it to that. Stanislaus County is now delivering projects. We are able to do it in a short order, and we can do that with North County corridor. We just need this piece, so it's having it reprogrammed and getting it back in order to complete and stay on schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patricia?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm actually here serving in two capacities. So first of all, as the chair of the San Joaquin Valley COG Directors Association, I provided a letter for the record this afternoon. Basically, the letter states that we are in strong opposition of the removal and deletion of the two projects in Madera and Tulare. The letter concludes with, collectively, we are requesting that you reconsider and restore those two important projects back into the 2020 ITIP. I'd also like to thank and recognize my colleagues who are here today in support of this letter that has their signatures also included on this letter that I've submitted for the record. And then as I'm here as the director of the Madera County Transportation Commission, and I'd like to point out a couple of things. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I see this here. Okay. I'd like to first point out an error, a significant error in the 2020 draft ITIP on page 24. There's a project that is currently under construction in Madera. It's the widening of State Route 99 from Avenue 12 to Avenue 17. And in the document, it states that south and north of this particular project, it's already 6-lane. And that's an incorrect statement. It is 4-lane. And so I just wanted to make that correction for the record. It's a significant incorrect statement. What I would like to first address is what's happened to the collaborative effort in preparing this draft 2020 ITIP. We take pride at the Madera County Transportation Commission of working very closely with our partners at District 6 and with our other partners in the San Joaquin Valley. We work together, we strategically plan and support each other's projects, and during this process, we were not consulted at all. We were not asked for any input on this project, or on the removal of our project. The project that is being requested to be removed has already had environmental work completed or began on the project. And elimination of the project will be detrimental to the flow of the traffic on State Route 99. I'd just like to give a little bit of history. In 2016, this particular project was requested to be deleted from the program. And in addition to that, the current project that's under construction was also requested to be deleted. And we worked with our partners and we decided, okay, we will voluntarily delete the project that is being proposed today for deletion. And instead, we would gather our resources and put some of our ITIP funding and our measure dollars on the current project that's under construction. And during that process, there was a promise to restore the project in the 2018 STIP, and that promise was kept, and we moved forward with the environmental again for the second time, and now we are here before you today with the request of it being proposed for deletion. Again, our environmental had started, and the deletion of this project interrupts the flow of completing 99 to a 6-lane facility. The project is let's put it here. The project is part of a long-range regional transportation plan. It's included in our regional transportation plan and our sustainable community strategy in the Madera region. Completion of the project improves travel speeds, reduces VMT, and provides relief to our local systems. The project helps Madera region meet the greenhouse gas reduction goals and the San Joaquin Valley's federal emission reduction targets. We did an analysis last week, and the project, if it is not delivered, would create over 3 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per day in Madera by the year 2035. This project is not just a Madera project, this is a state project of state and national significance. It's a farm-to-market route, as you've already heard from previous speakers this afternoon. This is a route that is heavily traveled by trucks. 25% of all the food in the United States comes from the San Joaquin Valley, and over half of the foods and commodities that you purchase today come from the San Joaquin Valley. There's over 500 million tons of commodities that are transported in the San Joaquin Valley annually. Trucks carrying agricultural products are considered just in time, so it's important that we get our products to the market and on your table as soon as possible. There is a safety concern related to this project. We are seeing more and more injuries and accidents on the state route. There's a lot of trucks traveling, a lot of stop and go. So with that, we are respectfully requesting that you restore our projects in Madera and in Tulare. It's a fix it first. We need to repair the gaps. That's a stop and go. It goes from 6 to 4, 6 to 4, 6 to 4. And we need to address this safety concern, and we need to, I am here before you today to request to restore those 2 projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Ball, followed by Nick Fiddler and Ted Smalley.
Thank you, Commissioners. Rob Ball, Kern Council of Governments. We are wanting to thank you for your support of SB1. We were very supportive of SB1, particularly the TSEP funding. Also, our #1 project that we're interested in supporting is State Route 46Y project, that intersection where James Dean died. And that project next to it is the Antelope Valley grade, the Antelope grade there. Those 2 projects are our 2 #1 projects, but there's one project that we have just slightly ahead of that, and that is through the community of Lost Hills, and it's a 4-laning project. It has received a build grant for $17.5 million. That $17.5 million is part of a $50 million project, and so we're looking for about $30 million to be able to complete that 4-laning segment. Environmental and right-of-way is further along on that project and would be an important piece. Also wanted to reiterate the same concerns that the process for this ITIP program, we weren't advised, or it just came out, and so we're in the process of bringing up some of those same concerns. One of them is the $60 million for some future rail project that just is not really, that's not the legal way that you would do something in your process, is identify some reserve fund. You need to identify it for a specific project, and so that $60 million needs to be re-identified. There's also potential fund savings. There's a proposed station improvements to the Amtrak station in Fresno, but there's a high-speed rail station that's going to be built, and so the lifespan of that project is going to be very short. That might be also another potential location for some savings. Finish 46, though. Last spring, our board passed a resolution making it our #1 priority. 8 of our local jurisdictions, representing 94% of the population, have also agreed with that. This is all a part of a goods movement that connects 58 via I-5 to the 46 corridor up to 101. And it's already been talked. It's already an important corridor for the Salinas Valley, but this 46 corridor only has about 8 miles left of 4-laning. If you go up to the 152, which is really the only other place across the coastal range, there's about 11 to 12 miles left, and there's no interest whatsoever in the South Bay area to want to widen that to any 4-laning. This will create a safe passage for trucks to get to the Central Valley. And then, as mentioned earlier, in Delano is Union Pacific's Cold Connect facility. It's a food train service. They do about 5 trains a day that go back to the East Coast, to the distribution centers on the East Coast. So what this is a way to improve the efficiency of goods movement to the East Coast. And because it's exporting it to the East Coast, that's bringing in money in from the East Coast. So this is also an economic development project. And so we need to be looking not just at, how can we get people out of their cars, which are fairly clean nowadays, into rail, but we need to be looking about how to get our goods onto rail. And this is a very important project for that corridor. Another project is the 58 corridor truck climbing lanes. We are working right now looking for funding for truck climbing lanes on that 58 corridor, which is an extension of not only 40 and 15, but it actually creates a north beltway bypass through around the LA basin. Going up the 395 corridor to 58. And so this corridor is essential. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that we have some auxiliary lanes that were left out of the funding of the Centennial Connector project. That's where 58 comes into 99, and that's looking for about another $60 million as well. All of these projects are not necessarily for capacity, they're more for safety. Interaction of trucks and vehicles. It's not this where we're out there widening roads. When you see something from the rural areas of the state that says this is a widening project, it's a widening project for safety, not usually for capacity. And so something needs to be, some additional education needs to be made about the importance of these projects to the region. And finally, the 3 largest ag producing counties in the nation are in the southern San Joaquin Valley, Fresno, Tulare, and Kern. And this is at the heart of those projects. And it sounds like maybe there's going to be some funding for the 99 project in Tulare, but currently as the draft sits, there's not a single project in that area. And although ag is maybe only about 2% of our GDP statewide, for the San Joaquin Valley, these disadvantaged communities, these are hugely important projects and have a much greater impact than, say, a rail project in a more urban area when it comes to the economic development of the region. So that's it for my items. We have more extensive comments in this little brochure here, and be happy to answer questions if you guys want to talk about it later.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Nick Fiddler, followed by Ted. Ted's queued up, and then Robert Phipps.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Nick Fiddler, the City of Bakersfield. I won't reiterate a lot of the information that Mr. Thomas and Rob Ball has presented, but I would like to point out that the City of Bakersfield, for over the past 15 years, has been making significant efforts to improve the regional and interregional connectivity through the metropolitan area. A program like this is multi-year. To go through and just delete projects out of a program has a significant impact not only to the local agencies, to the district departments of Caltrans, but also to the private industry. The haulers and major businesses such as Amazon rely on these types of programs to indicate where they will be setting their business facilities. As you're aware, there is a major Amazon facility going into Bakersfield community, which will rely heavily on the routes through the Bakersfield metropolitan area and the State Route 99 corridor, and also over the 46 corridor to the west coast. So these decisions that are being made in the ITIP program to delete these projects have a significant impact to all agencies. We would like to point out that we've only had a week to review these. We weren't involved in the planning efforts that were made through the ITIP. We would like to have more ability to comment because, as Rob Ball has indicated, there are other projects within the State Route 58 corridor and the 99 corridor, which is a major feeder into the southern San Joaquin Valley and to the northern California from the East Coast and for product or for freight into and out of California. So again, appreciate your time and the opportunity to comment on this program, and available for any questions.
Thank you, appreciate it. Ted?
Thank you, Commissioners, Chair, and Susan. In summary, we want to see, as been mentioned before, the funding to be restored to the San Joaquin Valley 99 projects. You've heard from our assembly person. I'm so thankful that he was able to come up today. I've also provided a letter from Senator Grove that you should be having. And I am thankful to you all. You have been great partners to us over the past decade. The amount of investment that we've partnered on has exceeded $2 billion, and we've delivered high-quality projects together. But as I sit here today, we're very frustrated, as you can imagine, and over the past few days, even got more frustrated by some of the comments by Caltrans. You would note in there on their PowerPoint, there was $9 million of cost savings that our district developed. We partner with our district constantly looking at cost savings on projects across the board. And the reward for our district doing cost savings is to tell them, well, we're going to take another project away from you instead of rewarding. That seems to be counterintuitive to what you as a commission have challenged Caltrans to do. Would also note that you know about 99, you know about goods movement, especially this group. We don't need to talk about goods movement, but a reminder that folks, high-speed rail is not going to take care of goods movement. We're talking about a goods movement corridor, and sometimes we try to blend transit as if it's going to relieve the amount of trucks. Technology is going to change our trucks, but we are going to need these corridors in order to continuously deal with the truck needs. We know about Amazon and other areas of industry that are continuing to do more truck traffic, not less. And I would just note, as Mr. Poitras mentioned earlier, very upsetting. I'm sure my board will have much to say about being called an obstructionist. We are partners to Caltrans and the CTC, and when I just did rough numbers yesterday, Tulare County and San Joaquin County alone, I didn't have a chance to go look at all the rest, have put $250 million on 99 over the past 10 years, or we will because we're getting ready to bond. The main point of the bond is helping with 99 interchanges. To be called an obstructionist when every penny of our IRT has been gone to the state highway system is insulting and ridiculous. An apology is due to the San Joaquin Valley and our county for being called an obstructionist. I would just note, we continue to work hard with our district. We work hard with you all. We partner, we deliver high-quality projects, and these need to be put back in, and further, an effort needs to be done to make sure that there's a real plan to deliver 99. And finally, an error was made that was very big earlier in the presentation and the answers. In Tulare County, it is not an urban area that requires widening. There are 24 miles that can be widened to the median, and with all due respect, and I thought we worked well with headquarters, they should do their homework. And they should come down and meet with us and actually drive it before they make comments like that, because they would know it could be widened to the median and a cost effectiveness of probably under $16 million a mile. And while I don't consider $16 million small, because I can't write that check, compare that to any other widening spot in our whole state for a goods movement corridor. That's a pretty good bang for the buck. And so again, I would just leave this, that we stand ready to partner, not just as Tulare County, but as the Valley, and we will work hard, we will work together, but this simply isn't acceptable, and a better game plan needs to be developed. And I just leave this, Mr. Alvarado, you said something very important a year or so ago. You had told everyone, look, we're all going to work together, we're all going to get our projects, we have to be patient. I'm not sure everyone at Caltrans headquarters got that memo. And I think we need to make sure that we work together to make sure these valuable segments get done for the safety of everybody in the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to call Robert Phipps, followed by Debbie Hale, and then John Gedney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Robert Phipps with Fresno Council of Governments. Just to let you know that we stand with our Valley brothers and sisters in our concern and objection to the project deletions as they stand in Kern, or it's specifically Madera, Tulare, and then the delays in Kern as well. While Fresno has not been untouched by the ITIP draft, our concern is centered primarily on the 99 corridor for the reasons stated earlier. We do not believe that it was the intent or that it meets the intent of Proposition 1B, that it runs counter to that wonderful effort that recognized that the Valley has been patient. The Valley has waited its turn in line. And we request that you reconsider and reapportion those funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Debbie Hale?
Hello, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'd like to shift your attention towards the Central Coast and Monterey County, which I might note is the number 4 agricultural producing county in the state, so go agriculture. And start by saying that I'm not asking for ITIP funding for the US 101 corridor yet. You might remember that a year ago today, each of you visited the Salinas Valley in the city of Gonzales, and I want to thank you for holding a town hall meeting there. You got to know firsthand what it meant to be the salad bowl to the world. We got to take a fun tour in a cooler and wear these nifty shower caps, and you got to see the logjam of trucks that take goods to market in that area. You also heard from a local community group called the US 101 South of Salinas Traffic Safety Alliance, and they talked about the many injury and fatalities that they witness at US 101 and Spence Road with the mix of large trucks, slow-moving agricultural vehicles, and commuters, fast-moving commuters, and through travelers from the south. You also heard about that the collision and fatality rate in this location is nearly 5 times the statewide expected average. Well, since you left, this group has been busy. Transportation agency staff, California Highway Patrol staff, and Caltrans have met regularly with the US 101 SOS Alliance, they call themselves, to see what can be done on an interim basis. It's not much, but it's what we can do right now. Caltrans put in some no U-turn signs. CHP is issuing a lot of citations for speeding. But TAMC's focus is on a long-term solution. This month we launched an engineering study to work with the community and develop concepts for the project. But what it's going to look like is a new interchange. It's going to cut off the left turns in the corridor, and it's going to create a network of frontage roads, frankly a lot like what we did at US 101 in Prunedale. In the 2020 STIP, we'll be proposing to use our regional funding to take these concepts then into environmental review. But US 101 South of Salinas is a really big project for our small county, and so we'll be looking at a diversity of funding to support a diversity of all the different travelers. And that'll be interregional funds, that'll be trade corridor funds, that'll be our RTIP funds, and of course our local sales tax. About 30% of the trips in this corridor are interregional funds, so that means they start outside of the county and they end outside of the county. And you saw that as evidenced in the strategic corridor, that this is one of those corridors in the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan. So really, I'm here to talk about the 2022 ITIP. I understand that there's hardly any money in the current ITIP, and I'm going to let my Central Valley guys have it here, or encourage you all to let them have it. So we've been waiting out the last couple of ITIP cycles, partly because we didn't have a sales tax and partly because we knew that this year was going to be a hard sell. But next year we'll be here to ask you for help in funding and engineering and design of this project so that we can put our money into construction, and we'll be looking for, like I said, SB1 funding to help make this project happen. So as you think back to your visit to Gonzales, I hope you'll also remember those earnest neighbors who are looking to all of us to solve what they see as a matter of life and death in their front yards. In 2 years, as the governor would have said, I'll be back, asking you to contribute ITIP funds towards permanently removing the conflicts and the collisions in this location. Thank you.
Debbie, before you go, just for clarification and semantics, let them have it, did you mean you support it? You didn't mean sock them, did you?
Absolutely not. No, I support my Central Coast Coalition, my Central Valley Coalition folks.
Thank you. Okay, now we have John, followed by, let's see, Frank Darnell, or Damrell, and Marcella Klim.
Thank you, Chair Inman. John Gedney. I'm representing the Amador County Transportation Commission. Adding my voice today, and thank you for the opportunity to support east-west interregional travel in Central California this time. In particular, I hope you'll agree that State Route 16, the linkage between State Route 16 and State Route 88 in combination, serves a vital interregional importance as it connects the greater Sacramento area with the Amador County region and parts beyond. In the spring, Caltrans has plans to shut down US 50 at Echo Summit for repairs. For a 2-week period, traffic will be diverted to State Route 16 and State Route 88 for travelers wishing to reach the Lake Tahoe area and beyond. This corridor is also a vital interregional evacuation route in case of emergency. The number one priority for our region is to preserve this vital interregional corridor. We have invested all of our regional RIP shares for the past 10 years in developing the State Route 88 Pine Grove Improvement Project. Recognizing financial limitations, this project has achieved cost savings to go from a $70 million project to a $40 to now just over $10 million. We still maintain public support throughout this process. PS&E will be completed in February. We're currently acquiring right-of-way, and it will be RTL in 2021. We're prepared to request an acceleration of our RIP shares out to 2028. And we've dedicated $1 million of our local regional traffic impact mitigation fee program. We're a small county, we don't have a lot to spend, but we put a lot on it, and all of our regional surface transportation program funds to fully fund construction, again, to improve this vital interregional corridor. Unfortunately, and reluctantly, I come to you today to let you know that Caltrans District 3 has other plans for this corridor. They're proposing to remove State Route 16 from the interregional roadway system and relinquish it to Sacramento County to benefit massive development plans along this corridor. Developers planning for up to 55,000 new residences and 12 million square feet of new commercial build-out along this corridor will benefit from this action by helping them avoid the state encroachment permit process. There is no bypass or alternative route associated with the relinquishment. The proposal will only benefit development interests. With this action, State Route 16 will turn into a parking lot with as many as 20 new traffic signals along an 8-mile stretch. At the December CTC meeting, we expect Caltrans District 3 will come to you to open the environmental process with a request for $1 million to address public controversy opposed to this proposed action. For the record, I can provide you with over 2,000 signatures and 500 comments received in a 2-week period from people not just in Amador region, but throughout Central California who testify to the interregional functionality of this corridor. To date, Caltrans District 3 refuses to provide a complete traffic study that will study impacts to interregional travel as a result of its proposal. In support of the integrity of the interregional roadway system, we ask that you withhold this $1 million distribution until Caltrans District 3 agrees to conduct appropriate studies to disclose impacts to this vital interregional corridor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Frank Damrell, followed by Marcella.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Frank Damrell. I work for Senator Kathleen Galgiani. But I'm here on behalf of the Senator, Senator Galgiani, Senator Ana Caballero, and Senator Hurtado. I have a letter to deliver to you.
Thank you.
and I would like to read the comments
Okay.
into the record. Thank you. Dear Commissioners, we, the undersigned senators representing the San Joaquin Valley, are concerned that the governor is eliminating visibility on transportation priorities that will affect or effectively set back priority projects and erode voter taxpayer confidence in government after they're placing their faith in politicians when they passed Prop 1B. Specifically, the ITIP removes SR 99 funds critical to the congestion and relief and movement of agricultural products. Locally, the governor's draft jeopardizes federal infra grant for the North County corridor because the promised Highway 120 bypass money, which was promised in the 2008 CTC resolution, is not funded in this document. This document also puts some ITIP funding into reserve for rail, with no guarantees for Valley Rail projects. My apologies. The deprogramming of Highway 99 projects for SR 99 in Madera County and in Tulare County for a total of $17 million are a reversal of the commitment to improve safety and capacity of these critical goods movement routes through the San Joaquin Valley. SR 99 is listed as one of the most dangerous highways in the United States and is a lifeline for transportation and the movement of goods and agricultural products for all of California. These projects were part of a promise of Proposition 1B approved by the voters. The draft reallocates $28,673,000 in Prop 1B money that was specifically meant for State Route 99 capacity projects. In 2008, Caltrans and CTC committed $91 million for future ITIP funding for the North County corridor, and the letter from former Caltrans Director Will Kempton is an example of this. It was the intent of the CTC to nominate the 91 million in 2010 ITIP for programming of an ITIP eligible project segment. Due to zero STIP in 2010, this commitment could not be fulfilled. StanCog was awarded a $20 million Tiger grant in December 2018, the only one in the state. This year, StanCog received a build grant for $20 million for the row phase, which needs to be allocated prior to September 30, 2020. The build grant is for the 3-mile segment from Coffee Road to Claus Road, Phase 1 of the North County corridor. The U.S. Department of Transportation has approved the county's plan to use the $20 million build grant for the row phase. The project is identified as a project of regional significance in Stanislaus County Measure L expenditure plan. The county is developing finance plan and cash flow analysis for the $151 million Phase 1 project. Local funds are being used for the PS&E. The plan utilizes $20 million build grant combined with local funds to obtain row for Phase 1. The phase relies on utilizing $30 million of ITIP for Phase 1 construction. The North County Corridor Program relies on $15 million of ITIP needed in 2022-23 and $15 million of ITIP needed in 2023-24. County and StanCog submitted the justification and request to be included in the ITSP. The county and StanCog requested that Caltrans make recommendation to CTC to program $30 million of ITIP funds for the North County Corridor project. The county and Caltrans are to enter into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation for the build grant. The governor's draft jeopardizes the federal infra grant for North County Corridor. because the Highway 120 bypass money, which was promised in 2008 CTC resolution, is being pulled. The draft ITP, or ITIP, also reserves $61,331,000 to spend on rail in accordance with the governor's recent executive order, with no indication that these funds will be spent in the Central Valley. The combination of these changes to the draft ITIP are potentially another instance of the San Joaquin Valley being sidelined and cut out of the transportation funding plans of the state. We respectfully request that the CTC retain the SR 99 projects and program the promised funding for the North County Corridor. Respectfully signed by Senators Kathleen Galgiani, Ana Caballero, and Melissa Hurtado. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcella?
Good afternoon. I am Marcella Clem, Executive Director for the Humboldt County Association of Governments. I'm here to provide you background on the Eureka-Arcata Corridor project and express the importance that it is to our region. I need glasses and I can't really look at you clearly. So, I think the fact that the PPNO number for this project of 72 is telling. In 1993, HCOG did a alternative study on the corridor. In 1999, Caltrans got their PID completed. The project has 7 uncontrolled intersections between our 2 largest populated cities, and the project is to close 5 of them. One, Caltrans has already closed, to put a grade separation at one of our busiest intersections that has a statewide average accidents levels higher than the statewide average, and a half signal where most of the businesses are. In the past, the businesses were very involved in this project. We had committees. The business owners actually hired their own engineer so that they could have a place at the table and have a say in the design of the project. And that was probably over 10 years ago. We did have a billboard that indicated this stretch of road was Blood Alley that was paid for by citizens. That billboard is gone. I am in constant contact with 2 individuals who were injured on that corridor. One will not be able to raise her arm above her shoulder. So it is an ongoing safety issue. This stretch of highway was a double fee safety corridor. It got that designation. It did lose that in 2006 when the criteria for double fines was changed to really look at head-ons and not so much the T-bone, so we lost that designation. But it is a continued safety problem. The Humboldt County Association of Governments Board is under contract with the Eureka Police Department to do extra patrols on that highway because safety remains a concern. This project was to be the solution for the problem. The safety corridor was an interim solution that ended in 2006. And we're still hoping to get this project finalized. The first time this project appeared in an orange book was in 1999. It wasn't in a funding cell. It was at the bottom of the page with an asterisk indicating that the HCOG region was dedicating $8.5 million to this project. Since that time, the board has funded funds for this project in 5 different STIP cycles. That's a lot of elected officials with 8 jurisdictions. The project was first fully funded, in 2012, and that was for half of what we called a half of an interchange, half of a grade separation. In 2014, it was the first time the ITIP came on board. They funded the full grade separation. In 2018, there was a cost increase. So that was the 3rd time this project was fully funded. And now we're at the 4th request for final funding. We have worked, thankfully, with CTC staff and Caltrans staff. The estimate that we originally received was $14 million higher than you see today. And I would like to continue to work with Caltrans and CTC to see if we can decrease it even more. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that the highway project is also connected to our Bay Trail project. So this project was moving forward. The public demanded that there be a bicycle and ped component. The California Coastal Commission, their solution was to put a separated barrier on the highway, which would not meet the purpose and need. So in the city of Arcata had already been working, and the county of Humboldt had been working on the Bay Trail. Since that time, the locals took on that part of the portion of the project. And HCOG board dedicated $4 million of the STIP for the trail, amounting to over $27 million to make this complete project for the multimodal corridor. If you have any additional questions, I know you had some earlier, I'm certainly willing to answer them.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, that's the end of my public comments. So I just want to ask you all to work with me here because we're getting thrown out of this room at 3 o'clock, I believe, or maybe before. But I want to give my fellow commissioners a chance to say a few things. Yes, Commissioner
Madam
Gomez.
Chair. Bruce, if I was a teacher, I'd give you an incomplete on this report. If you've got $61 million plus in unprogrammed shares, it's difficult for this commission to make an intelligent decision if we don't know what it's for.
Yes, I understand.
So, I don't know how we could vote on something like this if we can't make a comparison to what the unprogrammed shares are for the money you're taking away from projects that we already know about.
I understand that dilemma. Unfortunately, I can't give you an answer.
Who's going to tell us?
Hopefully, we'll have that by the time we come to you with the full draft or the final.
Well, I don't think coming at the last minute is going to help us.
Yeah.
I'd like to have and this is supposed to be circulated, people take a look at it, et cetera. That's why I give you an incomplete. Why are we circulating a draft that's incomplete? It doesn't make sense to me.
The rationale behind having the reserve is included within the STIP guidelines where the state is specifically authorized to hold ITIP funds and reserves for future priorities.
I understand that, but
And
you're taking money away from projects and replacing them with what? Even if you funded all those projects, you'd still have unprogrammed shares. Not to this amount, half of that amount. So I don't
Yes.
understand the rationale. You guys need to get your you-know-what together and come back to us in December and explain what the hell you're doing.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Alvarado?
Kind of going to go down the same road in that if the department came to us and said, okay, we have an executive order that we want to have a $60 million reserve. Okay, we all get together in a room and we figure out where we can get, say, a $60 million pot of money. But I think that should come from future money. I mean, we've got these projects that have been programmed. There's only one person in this room thinks this is a good idea. He's standing right there.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of passion in this room. There's a lot of passion in this room because people suffered a long time. SB1 comes along, we got a little bit of money coming in. That's causing its own problems. But I think if we would look at this for a future, look at some kind of a future whatever to come together for a $60 million reserve and let these projects go forward. I mean, all of these projects, when you look at 99, I mean, that's one of the workhorses of the state. It's very, very, I think it's overutilized, underinvested. And there was a reason SB1 put $1 billion into 99 because it was that, that far behind.
Safety looted.
But I just think that that maybe we ought to look at some sort of a future pool of money and not an existing pool of money by jeopardizing these projects.
Commissioner Van Kynenberg?
Bruce, at some point, I'd like to get some more information about the Raymer to Bernson double track project. That
Yes.
project's been on, off, and now I guess it's off again. I'd also like to get some more information on the Link Union Station project. I'd like to know, at our last meeting, we programmed a big number for Union Station, a big number. And so I want to know what's different to this, to that. We have like literally 30 seconds, and I got,
Yes.
before they kick us out.
We will
so.
prepare to provide that information to you at the October 15th hearing. We can coordinate with Metro to provide answers for you.
Okay. I'm really disappointed. You know, we've done well. As we prided this commission on trying to work in terms of being collaborative before. We don't try to surprise
Yes.
people. This came as a surprise to people. That's not the way, you know, we're at meetings all together every 7 times a year for a reason, so that we can not surprise each other. When I was interviewed to take this position, first question Bob Franzoya asked me is, why is, and this was before SB 1 had passed, and he knew I was from the Valley, tell me why we have so hard time in Sacramento having credibility to pass big transportation measures. I said, because you play with the money. Once you get up there, everyone's really clever at trying to figure out how to, oh yeah, we promised that to the voter, but now we're going to figure out a way to be too cute by half to move the money somewhere else. And so this issue of taking 1B money and not programming savings back into the quarter, but taking those savings and pulling them off the quarter really gets me at my craw. I really am, because my
Yes.
answer that I gave in the interview was one of the reasons I sit on this commission today. And the fact that Bob now sits as the Caltrans director, he's the one who asked me the question, and now we're going through this, makes me scratch my head. I do not understand that. I also resent the narrative that somehow that if we are against this particular, if we push back on this particular proposal, that we're not for investments in transit. We program and allocate a tremendous amount of money in transit. And I will get the exact figure, because when you compare what we are overall programming and allocating for transit to the ITIP, I don't want to see a comparison to those numbers. Part of what we do here is long-range commitments. We've talked, there's lots of things came up today of commitments that have been made over the years. And what happens is the commitments aren't held over from administration to administration. So a commitment that's made during the Schwarzenegger administration that's a long-range commitment should still be good during the Newsom administration. Same thing as the Brown administration makes commitments, but what we have is a new, people come in new in the cabinet, or people come into the Department of Planning and Research and say, hey, I've got new ideas, let's throw out all those old commitments. You know why there's people who've been on this commission for 12 and 16 years? Is because they remember things. And that's what why this commission is important. We remember the commitments that were made long ago. And when letters are held up and said, hey, we made this commitment a long time ago, someone honors and say, yeah, I was there when that letter was signed. Sometimes people get up and say, well, I wasn't around when that letter was signed, so I don't have to honor that commitment. I don't like that. At this point, I think that's all I want to say. But Bruce, I really do. I don't think I'm very fond of you, and we're better than how this process went. So let's do better.
I agree. This process did not work well. We did not provide the information early enough to our partner agencies and consult. I'm particularly, I would like to make a comment to Mr. Smalley. He referenced being called an obstructionist by someone at Caltrans. I'm not aware of that. I'd be very interested in talking with him. I don't view him as an obstructionist. The folks who work with him on a regular basis in my office and in the district, we all value his partnership. He goes out of his way to work with us and has been tremendously effective, which is why he's achieved so much. And I did not mean in my comments to belittle the section of Tulare County to the south between Bakersfield and Visalia. I recognize that 2-lane facility is much easier to widen than the other sections would be a lower cost. My point was in some of the more expensive areas to the north, we were still going to tackle those. And I sincerely believe that the department and the administration will stand by the Highway 99 corridor. I think if we hadn't taken that risk in programming so much of this year's capacity, I would not be standing here with this ITIP proposal to you to be taking funding away from folks. If we would just reserve that $107 million and would not reserve it, just not have reached out to the future to pull it in.
We have money coming for the first time
For
in
the
a
first
long
time,
time.
yes.
We got at least 10 years worth of money coming in.
Yes.
Real money.
Yes.
And I think all of that needs to be taken into consideration. Because, you know, it's frustrating. I mean, and I'll just be honest with you, you know, I helped raise a lot of money, and I spent a
Yes,
lot
indeed.
of time on SB 1 and on Prop 6. More time than my family should have allowed me to. But I think in the end, it was going to be worth it. But decisions like this make it harder the next time. The next guy has to come and ask for money and then protect it. It just makes the whole system almost unworkable. And so I think that we need to, and we don't have a lot of time, but I think we need to just sit down and have a real discussion about this $60 million reserve. If you want it, I don't have a problem with it. But let's figure out a different way to get to 60 than the path we're taking right now.
Okay, we are definitely going to get thrown out. So are there any other public
Try to
comments?
throw them out. They need to talk to me.
Okay, well, I think, I was told we had to be out by 2:30, and I hate timers, so we didn't do timers.
I
But
know the show.
okay, so anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to make sure that we try to get ourselves back to a spirit of collaboration, because I think that needs to be all of our middle name, or we're not going to do well. I have just one quick question while she's still here. Patricia Taylor, you're still here. I was very interested in your modeling on your emission reductions. So have you shared that with Caltrans, and can you share that with our staff as well? Because I would be very interested, because I think at the end of the day, the executive order is really about helping us achieve our emission reduction goals. So I think I would be very interested to know. But
And improved our tips.
yeah, so anyway, with that, I want to, yes, Teresa.
Just real quick, we are having another hearing in Southern California on October 15th. It is at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the agenda should be posted on our website. So I invite everyone that would want to come and continue the conversation about the draft ITIP.
Okay, and I think for future going forward, I do really appreciate the fact that our folks didn't have a lot of time on this, and I think we need to get ourselves into a better cycle where folks have a legitimate amount of time to go back to your group and discuss things. And so whatever we need to do, Teresa, if you can help us, but I think something coming out on the 1st and having this hearing on the 8th, and then the next one another week later, is a little bit close, and these are important issues. So let's try to give ourselves time to really engage everybody. But with that, meeting adjourned, and okay, everybody, on your mark, get set, go.